This is episode 282 of the Move Now Chiropractor. We are rolling. We are live. We got a special trio today. We got Trainer Danny and Trainer Tony over here. We got to figure out some name for you.
I know. I like just Danny, though.
Okay.
Just Danny, straight Danny.
Oh, that's right. It's like Cher.
Cher, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she said. All right, let's roll the intro and we'll get going. So here we are. Here's what so many chiropractors have been searching for. How can we expand our clinical reach by finally addressing more than just the segmental component with our patients, but at the same time, not feel like we are selling out our chiropractic principles? The reality is our patients count on us to guide them. And when it comes to results, we must also address their posture and their movement. The verdict is out. Patients have spoken, and this is what they want and what they need, focusing on functional movement and corrective exercise. So how do we practice in a way where our community is engaged, excited, and seeking us out because of this comprehensive, results-based approach? That's the goal we've all been searching for, and this podcast will show you how. My name is Dr. Todd Pickman, and welcome to the Move Now Chiropractor. All right, we're here in our professional studio. I think all of our volume is good. Danny's on an interesting setup because I realize this is the first time we've had three people in the official Move Now studio, which is being infiltrated by the ATF. We'll tell you that story in a second. And so Danny's hooked up to this wireless thing, and then it's really important because she's 2 feet away from it. So we have this wireless connection. It's all I had to work here. I mean, I probably could have used a different mic, and then she doesn't need audio because she can hear us. So she doesn't have headphones on. She really just didn't want to mess her hair up. That's the truth.
Understandable.
Yeah. That was the truth. All right. Well, this is 282, and we didn't really have a set topic in place. I figured it'd be kind of fun just to fill in some of the gaps from our last podcast we did. That was an hour long last Tuesday. And then also maybe have Tony interrogate Danny.
Oh, man.
Really?
Yeah. Just ask a bunch of questions and we can talk about some things that have changed and some fun times that we had back in the day and how we fix some, because there's a lot of systems that you're probably not aware of, TT, that Danny can fill you in on. So it'd be kind of a fun, catching up. So Tony worked in the clinic, what was this, circa 2016, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's about when I started, yeah.
2016 to 18?
18, 19, yeah.
So about 3 years? Was it 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 years. And then went off, and our last podcast last week, if you want to get the whole history of TT, he'll take you through that, or you can listen to it. We went through it, so we're not going to do the same thing. So I'll just assume that you are a avid listener to the Move Now Chiropractor. You were like popcorn, around the fireplace listening last week. So you already know the story for TT. Now we got Danny in the house. Danny had to go to a hand appointment because she broke her hand, remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you left the hand appointment, or was this the one you stayed at?
No, this is the one that I walked out of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you share that story briefly?
Okay, so about a month ago, I broke my hand roller skating. Got a hard cast on it. It was time to get the hard cast off and check some things out because they suspected I had some possible ligament, tendon, muscle injuries as well. So I waited an hour in the waiting room, and then the nurse called me back, and she cut my cast off. She started feeling around. Obviously, it hurt really bad, and she's like, I need to go get the doctor. So I was like, okay, that's why I'm here. And so she left the room for 20 minutes, came back in. So at this point, it's like an hour and a half that I've been there. She came back in. She's like, oh, the doctor went in with somebody else. Here's my recommendation of what you should do. And obviously, I was impatient at that point, waste of time. Not a huge fan of doctors in general, so I got upset and I walked out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So.
And then I also text Dr. Todd while I was waiting in the waiting room. We came up on 50 minutes that I was waiting, and I texted him and asked him if he knew how to cut off a cast.
Mm-hmm. Did you have surgery, or they just casted it?
They just casted it. So I'm still only 4 weeks out, so probably should have stayed a little bit, but I just asked Dr. Todd for advice on what I should do, and here we are.
And here you are. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, she fell roller skating. That's on a previous episode too. It was her son's birthday party that I was at with my son as well. And Danny did really well. She was decked out 80s gear. And then the last 10 minutes or something. It was like the very end.
It was like 30 seconds. We were clearing the rink because we had it for 2 hours and we'd hit that 2-hour mark. So we were clearing it, and one of my sons bumped my skate, messing around, and down I went.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, painful. Did the doctor's office follow up with you at all, like try and get in touch with you, or?
No.
It's really weird.
Make sure, I just want to tell you on that too, TT. The mic is very sensitive, unidirectional, because it's trying not to pick up on Danny. So you got to like...
Go this way?
Yeah, it says back on the back.
Right here, this is back right here.
Oh, so you're a little torqued. So torque it the other way so you're on the front. So you don't want to be on the back. Yeah, you want to be on the frontage.
There you go.
And then you have to like make love to the microphone when you talk to it.
So like that?
Come up a little higher. And then try talking.
Like that?
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
That's good. You know, it's funny. I was playing a little bit of her episode to Jenna, my assistant, yesterday, and she's like, Tony has a really good voice.
Really? See,
Yeah.
I think yours is way better than mine.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm like self-conscious. Like, does mine sound as good? I don't think it does. It sounds like whinier and like, I don't know.
That's funny.
But someone, I don't know if this is true, that when we are speaking and we hear our voice in our head, it sounds different than like I'm hearing something different than what you hear when you speak.
For sure.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. At this point, those two things, I think, don't even resonate with me anymore because I've edited so much footage of myself doing stuff.
Yeah.
Like at first when you hear yourself, you're like, I sound weird.
Yeah.
And then you listen to yourself like 10 million times and it just cancels out. And you're like, that's how I sound.
Yeah. That's me, not live.
Yeah. That just means you should do more video editing. So I'm looking for a video editor.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. I'm trying. Out in
How
Minnesota.
fast can you airship your hard drive to me? So, overnight.
I don't think you have to have it in hand, but the problem is yesterday I was uploading last week's episode and my computer kept timing out and it was like 9 gigs of edited film. It literally just uploaded now. So for those of you out there that are waiting for the YouTube video to watch last week's episode, it's going to be weird whenever you watch this. It's like a time warp of like Total Recall type stuff of like, you know, it already happened. It didn't happen. I listened to it. But anyway, it'll be up because Danny will send the email out today because it's almost on YouTube.
Yeah, I saw that this morning.
Struggling.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, that's because we had to get rid of our video editor. Yeah. We should talk about that. We should put him on blast. Let's do it. So, hey, if you're listening to the podcast out there, I won't name your name, but if you're listening to the podcast out there, not naming any names, yeah, I edited the last podcast. It was a 1 hour podcast. It took me 50 minutes, 50. Intro, outro, lower thirds, you know, Dr. Todd, Trainer Tony, all that looks fine. 2 different video angles, back and forth. Took me 50 minutes to finish it. I bet you if our entitled early 20-year-old video editor that, you know, had a bunch of complaints because the world owes him a favor, I bet if he edited it would have taken him 3 hours and he would have done color correcting and audio correction and, you know, oh, I'm so experienced. How experienced are you? You're 21 years old. Like literally 5 years ago, you were 16. I mean, it blows my mind. Anyway, I don't know if we want to talk about our current situation of, because I mean, it ties into what we did last time when we talked about hiring people and finding people.
Yeah, it's funny because I learned this starting out as a personal trainer, because I don't know how it is now, but when I started, it's like they would hire you and then give you like a shirt, like with the logo, and then give you a little pat on the ass and say, go get him, Tiger. And it was pretty much entirely up to you. And the nice thing about that is you'd work hard to like make connections with people. And then the last thing you want to do is blow it by being unreliable or making promises that you can't keep, or just generally being like weird. And so that was huge for me. I felt like my learning experience in how to like maintain relationships and how important that is, really, no matter what you do. But especially in this kind of situation. And I guess, I don't know, maybe people just, not everyone gets that.
It's the new generation.
Yeah. So I'll ask this back to Danny. What are you doing with all your kiddos? because there's 7 kids in your household. What are you doing with your kids to ensure that they're not going to be like this?
Well, obviously, they hear all my horror stories of going through interviews and the hiring process and all of that stuff. I think the older kids are genuinely invested in what's going on with work with me. But I hold them accountable. I don't like this new wave of parenting and not holding your kids accountable and feeling bad for not necessarily like punishing them, but like being hard on them and telling them, like, you said you were going to do something, you need to do it. Or I asked you to do something, please do it. So, I mean, just really that extreme ownership, because Trey and I read that Jocko book, we follow his podcast and all of that stuff. And so we try and instill that same extreme ownership with our children and what they do.
Totally. And it's not like kids are not going to make a mistake. Of course they're going to make a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
But have them make the mistake under your guidance, and then you can like course correct.
Yeah, and that's one big thing that we've been going through with my oldest son. He's 15, almost 16, but you know, he was making some poor choices a couple of months ago, and it was like, dude, you need to shape up. And I was really hard on him, and I, you know, withheld his license from him for a while so he couldn't drive. He got a new car last year and just sat in the driveway, and he had to look at it because he wasn't behaving properly. And it's like, either you're going to shape up into a functioning human who's on their way to adulthood, or you're not going to have anything. Yeah. And he turned it around.
Yeah, that's awesome. And he just did a jiu-jitsu tournament.
Yes. Which
is so awesome. He's like, he's like going through, like, just a little side note that you mentioned, Jocko. There's a list of books that he writes for kids called The Warrior Kid, Way of the Warrior Kid. I'm reading those. I've read those to Grayson multiple times. We're like rereading the second book for like the 4th time. And it's all about this kid that couldn't do any pull-ups, couldn't do any push-ups, was weak, didn't know his times tables, would get bullied, had low self-esteem, ate bad foods, like slept in, played video games all day. It was like all of this stuff, right? And then his Uncle Jake comes in, which is Jocko. So Uncle Jake comes in for the summer, and his mom's real busy at work and his dad's out of town. So Uncle Jake is in charge. And it always starts like the book always starts like his last day of school. And he's like, today was the worst day of my life. Here's what happened. And so like in book 2 that we're reading, he throws this kid, Nathan, makes fun of him. He calls him plate face. And that really makes him mad. And he gets red and all mad. And the kid like sees he's getting mad and he's taunting him. And so he throws this like paper mache ball at him and like hits Nathan in the head, then bounces off and like knocks the teacher down. So he gets in a ton of trouble and he's crying and he's all upset. And then he forgot Uncle Jake was even coming to town. He goes to the principal's office and his parents, or the principal calls his parents. The parents aren't home. Uncle Jake answers the phone. He doesn't even know. And he thought his parents were picking him up. Uncle Jake cruises over and he's like, oh my gosh, I let him down. And he was like, right. And so anyway, the whole turnaround of it is he wakes up early every morning and exercises. He can now do like 20 pull-ups or something. He trains jiu-jitsu, does jiu-jitsu tournaments. He has this old crappy bike that he let rust and turn to garbage. And instead of buying a new bike, Uncle Jake teaches him how to strip it down and rebuild it. So he rebuilds it and it's his bike. And now it's like the coolest bike. And then he makes friends with Nathan because first he's like, I have to fight Nathan. That's going to solve it. I have to fight him. And so Uncle Jake's like, okay, well, before you fight him, we have to do some recon work. And then so it introduces these terms to kids too, like reconnaissance. And then he ties it back to being, working overseas, Navy SEAL stuff. So they do the recon work on Nathan. They find out Nathan like comes from like a total broken home and he's poor. And he's like, after school, he just goes and sits in front of like a 7-Eleven type place and people give him food. And I mean, it's like a sad story. And so Mark starts learning how to make fun of himself or kind of like think, just not take it so seriously and laugh. And then Nathan's like, wow, I didn't know you were so funny. And then they become friends. And then Mark takes him to jiu-jitsu with him. And then Nathan loves jiu-jitsu, but he can't afford it. So Mark figures out a way with their jiu-jitsu coach to help clean the studio with Nathan so he can get a free membership. It's a really cool story, right? And it teaches all these lessons along the way. I just thought of that because, now you're talking about, or I saw it on Facebook and it was awesome. I saw he was doing jiu-jitsu and I'm like, man, that's going to be so good for him.
It's really turned him around. He's only been doing it for 4 weeks. And I feel like that was kind of like his saving grace. I know I had a little bit of a story behind what I posted this weekend, but he's only been doing it for 4 weeks. And there was nobody in his class. He's 139. He wrestled 163 and 16, 17-year-olds. He's only been doing this for 4 weeks, so.
Wow, that's awesome. And then he just did his first tournament and took second in the tournament, right?
Yeah, so those were, he was wrestling the bigger kids, took second place, and he was the most gracious loser, which he's done wrestling before, middle school, high school. He's done some wrestling stuff, and he used to get so angry that I would like get nervous and like, oh my gosh. But he smiled. He had to tap out. Kid had him in an arm bar and couldn't take it anymore. So he had to tap out, but he hugged the kid. He smiled. He was just a smile I've never seen before. So
that's awesome.
It's great.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, old trainer Tony did a little bit of martial arts when I was over in New York, and I think I made some of the best friends that I made in New York were at that school. And I think something in particular about jiu-jitsu too that just creates, I think when the right environment is there, I think not every dojo is like this, but if you can find a good one, like there are these friendships and appreciation and all those things start to develop, and it's awesome. It's really nice to have that in your life.
Yeah, it's a great community. Yeah.
That is cool. Okay, cool. Well, switching gears, let's switch gears and talk about a fun little story that we didn't cover last week that we meant to, and we talked about it right before we had the cameras rolling today. That was funny. So it was one of the many times that we were recording video, and it was Anabolic Andrew, trainer Tony, and myself. We went into the clinic on a weekend, and the way that we used to record video, which we have doctors asking us this all the time, like, what equipment do I need when I do a testimonial video or when I do some kind of patient education thing? Like, honestly, what we used is we use an iPhone. And then I don't think I have one of my old iPhones here, but I had this little tiny old iPhone, like the old school one. And I used that. I had audio recorder on it, and I would plug a lapel mic into it. And that was as sophisticated as my wireless audio was. It was wired. And so what we would do is we'd set up the iPhone on a tripod. You can take excellent video with an iPhone. And oftentimes we'd have two different camera angles. So two iPhones, or an iPhone and an iPad, right? And then we would have this little audio recorder that would go to like a $20 or $30 lapel mic, similar to the one that Danny's got on right now. She's got a lapel mic going to a much more sophisticated Rode, awesome. I'd recommend getting, can you hand me that Saramonic thing right there, that box? This is another thing here, just as a side note. Oh, this is like a step up in, this thing works so awesome. It's called a Blink 500. I don't get anything from telling you guys about this, but this is just, if you want audio, there's actually two receivers. The other one I'm using for something else. You plug this into an iPhone. If you have a Samsung, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. Well, you can get an adapter for Samsung, but why would you have a Samsung? I guess. I don't know.
Because they're awesome.
I guess because they're more like hackable and you can make it so they don't spy on you as much or something maybe, or I don't know. Bill Gates has got something in there.
We can get into that in a different episode.
Okay, yeah. This is going to be a long episode if we go on that. But anyway, this plugs into the little lightning port on the iPhone. Pretty cool. And then it Bluetooth syncs up to one of these little jobbers, and then you plug in a lapel mic like Danny's got, and you have beautiful audio, and you can do two of these. So anyway, we didn't have that back in the day. All right, not even close. This didn't exist yet. This was like right after the internet came out, I think. I mean, like a week before, right, yeah. Everyone was using typewriters, I think. Yeah.
And we were just talking before we started recording about like nowadays, I think you can find a podcast on almost anything, because I feel like that's really blown up, just like YouTube channels and then all these alternate video platforms. But I felt like we just wanted to create we would have these conversations, and then Dr. Todd would go, we need to be recording this. This is good information. And then we just realized we need to just create this huge, I don't even know how many videos you have now. Like,
I think on Vimeo, the last time, I think we're at probably close to 3,000.
It's nuts.
So it's a lot. There's a lot of videos in there.
And because we want to share with everybody, other doctors and then the patients too. And so it was just we just had our basic stuff.
Which a side note on that, I just want to go off on a little side note before we get into the iPad story, because we got to cover the iPad story. We started, just to be on track, with how we did our video and audio setup. So we're going to save that. We're going to get back to that. Side note, we were talking about how everyone has their own podcast. I think that ties into the problem with our generation right now. Everyone thinks they're so important.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I have my own Instagram, my podcast, and I have this many followers. And it's like, no one cares. And you're really, I mean, not to be mean, but you're not that special. Like, there's nothing that you've accomplished in life that warrants you having this. And I feel like the most recent thing in my mind, our video guy thinks of himself as this just, I'm so skilled and advanced. And it's like, no, man, take a sip of humble pie, or a bite, I guess, and realize that you have a lot to learn. And if you turn that attitude around and start coming from a standpoint of, I am a clean slate, I want to learn, and I want to, and I welcome the feedback, and I welcome this, you get a lot further in life versus thinking you know everything at the ripe age of 21 or 22.
I think humility is very undervalued right now where we're at as a society. And it's funny, like talking about martial arts school, I think that's one of the great things. And I like martial arts analogies, is like, if you roll in there with that attitude, thinking you're some kind of a badass or whatever, you're going to very quickly realize that you're not. And so humility is kind of almost forced on you a little bit, but it's so good for you in the long run, especially as a young person.
Yeah.
To realize your limitations, your strengths and weaknesses, and so you can grow.
And like almost every situation that you communicate with someone, if you come in from a standpoint of, okay, if there's a topic that you're an authority on that you can own it, you can talk about it. But as soon as you get to the point where there's something that you're not an expert on, which when you're 21 is like everything, it is just, when you come from a humble place, other people to an extent like won't punch you if you're wearing glasses type of thing. It's like if you come at this humble place of, oh yeah, no, I welcome the feedback. Yeah, please. No, I really appreciate it. It makes the person on the other end, if they were getting worked up or they're mad about something, it calms them down, and it's like a win-win. Everyone wins. And maybe that person steps back and is like, man, I was too hard on this person. I need to, and it leads to a better outcome versus, someone has this, oh, I'm going to fight you back and make a bunch of excuses. Which right here, extreme ownership, like literally if everyone just read this book and took it to heart and understood what this is, it's such an awesome principle. And I have to remind myself of this all the time. I mean, there's stuff where I'm like thinking about something going on in life, and then I'm like, okay, everything's my fault. So how can I make it my fault? And how can I take ownership on it and say like something I could have done better? Yeah. And honestly, I mean, to be totally transparent on it too, like it happens a lot with me because I'm really bad at assigning things and then following up to make sure someone was able to follow through with it. Like just with staff or just with anything. I mean, like even, asking my wife if she can pick something up, right? In the perfect world, you assign something to someone, they now own it. It's their project and they have total extreme ownership on it. But in reality, that doesn't happen until you've put a lot of reps in. Yeah. So usually what happens, like, hey, can you pick this up? Yeah, sure. Well, she's got a million things going on, and she's, trying to stuff with the house, and she's got appointments, and I'm sitting here talking about like one child when you got 7, so I can't really fathom the amount of stuff that you juggle, which makes me even that much more impressed with what Danny gets done, which also which like forces me to have like way more grace anytime like, hey Danny, did you get this thing done? And she's like, no, I was doing this instead. Instead of being like, Danny, come on, you got to get that done, I'm just like, all right, I get it. And then I think, how can I help better? Like, how can I help facilitate the process of having a written track record or something that makes it easy for the person on the other end to be able to look at and be like, cool, everything's settled now. I can look, boom, 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 methodically get through this thing, prioritize and execute, because there's always a ton of stuff on the plate. You can't get everything done at once. Everything can't be a top priority because then nothing's a top priority. All things that between us working together and then managing the team and working with other chiropractors, those principles are huge. So I'd highly recommend any chiropractors out there, read this. Maybe have story time with your staff and read it to your staff. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think timely that Jocko is becoming popular in a time where I think culturally we have basically the Victimhood Olympics going on. Mm-hmm. It's like this constant competition of like, I'm a bigger victim and in more ways than you are. So, and, but I think it's always interesting. There's always like a
Victimhood Olympics. I think that's going to be the title of this podcast.
Yeah.
Victimhood Olympics.
Well, you know what I'm talking about. You see it all the time. And it's not that people don't have bad things happen or tough stuff to deal with, but I just sit there and a little part of me is like, that's just the wrong attitude to have, man. Like it's okay to like recognize something bad happens or whatever, but then you got to switch your thinking and be like, okay, now what? You know, like that's what we did the other day when Dr. Todd first told me about this situation with this guy he was working with. We talked about it for a little bit, and then it was like, okay, so what are you going to do? And then we talked about that, and it was just finding solutions and the next step.
Mm-hmm. And then I edited the podcast myself, and I was like, I don't want to do this, but I can.
Yeah.
Anyway. Oh, but Matt will likely help us out with that.
That's cool.
Old, reliable Matt. And that's an interesting dichotomy right there, because Matt is also, 21 years old, maybe 22?
I think he was younger.
Maybe even 19 or 20.
Yeah.
So Matt is someone I met through my buddy Alex at the racetrack out in Utah. He was filming and getting footage for Alex and his race car. I met Matt, asked him, hey, I need someone to do some video stuff for an upcoming impact event, which those of you watch this don't know what that is. We do these events usually twice a year. This year we just did one, but we're going to do a big one in like April, probably March or April, right? April. Okay. April. And that's where chiropractors, members, a few non-members, mostly members and their staff fly out to the clinic. We do these impact events. TT was there for impact 1 and 2, I believe. Maybe even 3. I mean, we just did our 11th one. Was it 11?
10.
It was 10. Okay, so 11's coming up. But anyway, so Matt came in, did some video on it, which, by the way, we got to make sure we get that video out there. I don't even know how much I've promoted it or what I've done with it.
I think it's on one of our landing pages.
Gotcha. It's a cool video.
Yeah.
We should launch that out. We should do a little email campaign to be like, hey, our upcoming impact, check out our last event. We should do that. So for those of you on our email list, watch out. You're going to get bombarded with emails. Read our emails too.
Yeah.
Danny puts a lot of work and time into this. Occasionally I'll put the emails together. She's primarily in charge of the email situation. So Matt, extreme dichotomy, super responsible, has his own business stuff, professional, humble, and I am compelled to treat him with a high level of respect because I'm impressed with him. Right? So in our interactions, we've had good interactions. He's a patient at the clinic, takes his care seriously. That's another thing, does his home care, got great changes on comparative x-ray, great case study. And just as a solid kid, I look at him and I'm like, man, that's like, good job, mom and dad, or, just good job, kid. Because, all of us have free will. We have that situation we get put in, but we have our free will to take flight, but definitely that having a mom and dad makes a big difference, having a solid, household. So it's not like we're all doomed. It's just, it's less and less common that you see that level of human being nowadays.
Yeah. I think that came up in our conversation is when someone acts weird like that and does things that are maybe sketchy, you wonder, okay, so what kind of upbringing do they have? What kind of example did their parents set? And like the kid in the Jocko story, that find out, okay, there's no parents around at all. And that can be a tough situation. But, I think that if the kid's smart, he'll, life will teach him the lessons he needs to learn anyway. And so maybe like the sunny side of this situation he went through is hopefully this guy learns from this and maybe takes a step back and says, oh, maybe I could have handled that better.
Yeah. Yeah. Or just moves forward and is the Victim Olympics champion.
Maybe gold medalist. Yeah. And you can't control that. You got to let that go too. So.
A back triple handspring of victimhood or something, right?
It's too bad.
Right. Very little splash.
Yeah.
Right. That's a swimming analogy.
I don't
know.
Yeah.
All right. The thing that I don't want to miss on this one, because last time we were going to talk about it, but it's a funny story. And then we'll see where else this takes us. I mean, so Trainer Tony's only in town for another week. He leaves on Saturday. That's why we have him on here. That's why we're doing more freestyle podcasts for these last couple episodes, just to For those of you who are part of Move Now or newer to this, like if you're part of Move Now, you've watched lots and lots of videos with Trainer Tony in it. So this is probably entertaining for you because you're like, man, this is the most I've heard him talk at all. Because usually he's stoic Tony. He doesn't say anything in the videos or very little. There's a couple where you did like Trainer Tony teaches team. That one, T to the fourth power. Remember that one?
Quad T. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So that one is when you were teaching. Remember you went through with Maddie?
No, but we made a lot of videos. I believe you that we did that.
So the story to come back to, and then we'll see if we can have TT start to talk to Danny about some of the changes in the clinic, because that's what I wanted to hit on with this. So I talked about the proper audio, the video setup, iPhones we had, and it's so important to have good audio when you're recording video. Like audio is almost better. It's almost more important than video. People cannot listen to bad audio. Hopefully the audio in this podcast sounds good. I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I'm trying to control the levels here because the voice is picking up in multiple mics. I don't know what that's going to sound like on the post-edit side. But anyway, I'm going to turn you down, Danny, because your mic is just picking everything up. Okay. Wait, say it again.
Okay,
cool. Now I got you turned down. All right. So what we did, and this was, I laughed so hard with this because Tony's just straight faced the whole time. So we realized that we had some shot we were doing, I think, or maybe my iPhone stopped working, my old one that was recording audio.
Yeah, or the battery died or something like that happened.
It was something. And we're like, oh my gosh, we have to finish this. We don't have time. Like, we got to get this going. So the only option was old school full size iPad. We put an audio recorder app on it. And then that was what was going to capture the audio. So we plug in the little lapel mic to it. And we're like, does Tony hold it? Do we like put it to his side for the shot so you don't see like this massive iPad recording the video or the audio? So instead, why don't you explain what we did?
Well, easy solution. We just have the wire go down my back and into the iPad and then just shove the iPad down my pants.
And so he's standing. No, and
we were seated. I remember because we were sitting in traction. And I think we had the whiteboard.
But I think we also like tied it around you with like a slastics or something, like a strap.
Yeah, because because it could only go so far, and it was the big 10 or 12 inch iPad, and so we got like some straps or something strapped in. But then we just shot me, I think, high enough where you couldn't see any of that. So it's kind of funny because all this was kind of behind the scenes.
I think that was for Move Well in the Workplace.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. Oldie but goodie. Which, side note, was a marketing program to train you how to get into gyms and teach personal trainers how to be your, like official custom advocates of screening their clients and knowing when they need to do chiropractic care and working as a team, building that close relationship with chiropractors and personal trainers. Move Well in the Workplace. It's a good one. It's part of the program. So when you join Move Now, you get access to these marketing pieces. Move Well for fitness professionals. Yeah, I just said Move Well in the Workplace. Move Well for fitness professionals. Move Well in the Workplace is another one, which is is it mwatwork.com or maybe it's movewelatwork.com. Try those URLs. Let us know in the comments section which one works. I can find out. I think it's movewelatwork.com. And then the fitness professionals one. I don't even know if we have a working website for promotion, to tell you more about it. But it's a program that exists. It's inside of our portal and it's awesome. It's a great marketing program to get out and do old school marketing where you walk into gyms and you build relationships, and then it's the little side note, like some of the stuff we've been doing more recently is now we're doing more stuff to like the personal injury side. And we have one for attorneys, which is the attorney interactive videos. There's a whole sequence on that. Danny and I were talking yesterday about just strategizing some more things to reach out to attorneys and kind of nurture those relationships. Shout out to Dr. Jeff Kronk at Smart Injury Doctors. A lot of that is inspired by him. And what else? Oh, anything further to say on this topic? Because I want you and Danny to wrap a little bit and get into some of the things that different management styles we've seen in the past, not to bash anything we've done before, but just to talk about our evolution of management in the clinic and where we're at now and why I feel like it's so much smoother and better because we got like Mama Bear in the clinic.
I'd love to hear about that.
Okay. We got like tattooed, gauged up mama bear.
I know. Yeah.
All right.
You can't see it, but from like here down is all tattoos. So.
But don't let that fool you. It's not like that's a thing anymore. Everyone's got tattoos, but Danny's done a really great job at coming into the clinic and really just getting everyone to have a high level of respect and be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? You know, if they need someone to talk to, they can talk to Danny. And then she also uses the same strategy with them of like, stop whining, pick yourself up, get out there and give them hell, you know?
Yeah.
So how long have you been working with Dr. Todd?
It'll be 2 years next week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Are you doing anything for our 2-year anniversary?
I was going to ask you the same.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of that. So that would have been a little bit after I left. I'd like to hear, like, what were some of the big changes or evolutions that happened?
So initially when I started working for Dr. Todd, I was just doing doctor support, Move Now, outreach, all of that stuff. And then at the beginning of 2021, he had a need for an office manager. And the whole reason why I was doing a lot of the Move Now stuff was because I needed to be able to work mostly remote. And so when he had a need for an office manager, we started brainstorming, how can we have you be this office manager and create this presence when you're working remotely half the time. So we came up with these systems in place, and our whole kind of philosophy for this new management style was making everybody feel like a leader in their own role. They're responsible for what they do. We're all adults, get your job done. We created this online Asana checklist so that way everybody knows what they're doing from the time that they walk in to the time that they leave. All they have to do is check off that they did this task. If for any reason they didn't do the task, communicate with me, let me know, leave me a little note in there. And that's how I started managing remotely. It opened up a big door of communication with the staff because since I wasn't physically there, they had to communicate with me and kind of paint that picture of what is going on in their day. So that way I know what they're doing. And initially, just because this was a new concept and we were kind of testing things out and troubleshooting, I did spend a lot more time away from the office and did do a lot remotely. I would come in Monday for a staff meeting and then that was kind of it. Nobody really had that kind of relationship with me and nobody really knew who I was. They just knew that I came in, I was taking over, and things were very cut and dry. And then after like 2 months of doing that, I think, everybody was like, we don't know what she's supposed to do. We don't know who she is. They thought I was just this mean, lay down the law person who came in and like bossed everybody around and then left. So then I broke it down for them and I said, here's who I am. Here's what I'm here to do, and here's how I'm here to help you, and really kind of broke down the walls with the staff members that were there. They kind of got to know me a little bit more. I'm not one to really let my walls down and let people get to know me, so I think that was good for me as well. But it also held a very strict boundary of I still hold that authority and respect, but I also value you, I hear you, I see you. So just finding that good balance there while still keeping boundaries. And it's been great ever since, I think.
Yeah, and along the way too, we've had team members that we, just have realized more and more for this level of management and expectations, they're probably not the best fit for what we're looking for moving forward. So we've worked through some different people that we've had there and built a really strong team. And I mean, just to throw it out there as far as like, I guess like a side note, it is something that is really rewarding is having a team member come in and watching them just grow as a human.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And the person that comes to mind on that is Emily. So she's great. And Emily taught the last impact event. Okay. Wow. So she taught the last impact event. And Emily is like, when she started, she's, I wouldn't say shy. She's not shy, but she has some awkwardness about her that everyone loves because she's just so funny, like with this awkwardness, right? And, she struggles with like getting overwhelmed with stuff and some stress stuff. But she's done a really good job overcoming it and managing it better and better. But she knows almost everything in the clinic, and she runs around and people are so impressed with her. They're like, man, she's like Energizer Bunny going everywhere. And she just does it. She just takes ownership and gets stuff done. And so it's teaching her how to play well with others sometimes, because if we've got other people in the clinic that don't move like that, that's a problem. Or when she gets overwhelmed and maybe has like these little mini breakdowns, like she's learning how to overcome that. And then Jenna, my assistant, kind of like the assistant office manager. And she's like manager on duty when Danny's not there. Jenna takes on a ton, does amazing. She's always just had a super high work ethic from day one. But like all of us have our strengths and weaknesses, right? So like for Jenna, it's like, I have my stuff I'm doing. If you give me anything outside of that, it's chaos,
Well, it's funny, I think, and maybe it's because we just talked about extreme ownership, but that's the word that like keeps coming to mind. Like when you're talking about having checklists and checking in with people and giving people the power to really own whatever their part is. And there's this other side of that of like taking extreme ownership doesn't preclude asking for help. And so part of the ownership is realizing like, wow, I don't have enough time, or I don't know how to do this other thing. And it's okay. It doesn't mean you have to do everything by yourself. Like let somebody know and reach out. And I think if you have a good group, like I've had this a couple times in my life, like people are more than happy to help you.
Yeah. So I'll let you continue. We talked about this a little bit before, and a lot of stuff's going to be repetitious on different podcasts just because we're talking from different angles. But Danny, can you fill in Trainer Tony about the Asana checklists and the bonus process and just how that works?
Yeah. So with our Asana checklist, like I said, it's a Monday through Friday checklist, and we have it laid out from what you do the time that you walk in to the time that you leave. The very last task on there for everybody at the end of the day is to give me a wrap up in the notes. So type up how your day was. So that way I know. So if they go through and they check off all their tasks and essentially they do their job for the entire week, they get an incentive, which is an extra $1 an hour for that week on their paycheck. If they don't do something and they either didn't have enough time, it wasn't humanly possible to get it done, they leave me a note in there and tell me why they didn't get the task done. That's something that we can work on. I understand. It'll help me gauge if maybe they've got too much on their plate or if we need to shift something. So with that, they communicated with me. It's okay. If they just flat out didn't do a task and maybe they, it was their Friday and they left in the middle of the week and didn't think about it and decided to check their tasks off Monday morning because they forgot to do it the previous week, they don't get their incentive. Yeah. So even though they did the tasks, they weren't following through with what they were asked to do, and they didn't check it off because they were checked out, ready for the weekend, and didn't think of it till they came back to work on Monday, which they didn't tell me, they didn't communicate with me, so they forfeit their incentive for that week.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that model was because this entire time, it's been this long to figure it out, this entire time I'm like, man, if people don't do their job, I'd like to not pay them as much. I'd like to have some sort of penalty for not doing your job. But you can't do that. You can't take back pay, but you can have an additional bonus that you get. And if you do your job, you get your bonus. And if you don't, you don't. And it's just, and it's a good way of people learning, okay, I got to learn this discipline. I got to master this. And if someone really is just failing on it all the time, then they're voted off the island and we find someone who wants to take it seriously.
Yeah.
But in most cases, it helps them as a nice reminder. And, sometimes people get upset about it a little bit, but it's like, we walk them through it and talk them through it. And, it's not that we don't appreciate you and think you do a great job. It's that these are the rules we've set up. We don't have to do this. We do this as an added bonus, but you got to play by the rules to get it.
Yeah. And I don't think too many people have gotten upset for not receiving their incentive. Usually there's a conversation had because they obviously know that they didn't do something. So there's a conversation that's had and we talk about how we can, work on it moving forward, or if they just have too much on their plate. But the ones who do get upset about it and feel like entitled to that incentive, they aren't there anymore. So it also helps us gauge who's a team player, who's willing to follow the rules, do their job, like understand that this is our policies and procedures. So the ones who have gotten upset aren't there anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. So that's one of the biggest things we've put into place that's really helped compared to previous management styles that we've done. Okay. So, I think more than anything is just trying to reinforce this idea of, if you are assigned a task, as much as possible, there's two things that have to happen. The person assigning the task has to keep track that they assigned it and have a follow-up process, a due date, something like a due date assigned, but then on their own end, put it on their calendar. Hey, I'm going to circle back. Okay. In honor of Jen Psaki, the previous press secretary, who used to say circle back all the time. There's some like remix songs made about her. Anyway, I just listened to one this morning on the way to the gym.
That was the redhead?
Yeah. Circle back, like that. Yeah. Topher, the Marine rapper, has a circle back remix. It's pretty funny.
Okay, check that out.
Yeah. So anyway, one is the person assigning it has to have that. That's what I'm not fantastic at. What I need to do is just everything I assign, I go into my calendar and I'm like, okay, it should be done in about 24 hours. I'm gonna set a little reminder just to follow back up. Okay, with anyone, talking about anything. But then ideally the person who's receiving the assignment, if they're like super rock star and can do it, they write it down, set their own reminders. So all of that stuff, that's what Asana does. So if you use Asana, it goes through a task management software. I don't use Asana because I'm just sucky on that. So like I need to, because it would solve that. So that's where I know my own shortcomings are, is I don't remember the last time I logged into Asana. So maybe from this podcast forward, I can get more disciplined on using Asana. There's an app on the phone. I mean, it's easy to do. So that's something that I want to improve on, is using Asana. And like because like you and me always just communicate on Marco Polo, text, verbally, all of that.
Yeah.
We don't use Asana for us.
No.
It's like for everyone else. But that's what we need to do, is for us. But even for me and staff with little things, because it's not like I can't communicate with the staff or assign something, but we have a pecking order and we have a way that we do it. So it's rare for me to do it. Like for example, yesterday, and I sent you a Marco Polo on this for training today, right? Yesterday, and it was a thing I was just talking to Jenna about in the room, because I said to Jenna, I'm like, I really wonder how these things are handled. And she's like, you should message Danny so we can do a training on it. I was like, okay. So my curiosity was, we had a patient that was their second in-office visit in the clinic, and their appointment was canceled, rescheduled. So I'm looking at the schedule for yesterday as I'm seeing patients, and I see this guy that I haven't even met yet, because I think he started with Dr. Zach. Like Dr. Zach started him, and I was going to follow up with him in person. I did a virtual broth where I get online and I went through his x-rays with him. So I've met him virtually through Zoom, but I haven't met him in person. And he canceled his appointment, and it said like work excuse or something like that. Like, oh, I had to work later, I had to do something. So my curiosity was, how is that being handled with a person taking the phone call? Because that needs to be handled differently than the person that's been there 12 times and then says, oh man, I got stuck at work, I'm sorry, right? Because now it's like their second visit, and it's like, do you think that our schedule is not important? This person, cancels. And in my mind, I feel like that conversation should be like, oh, okay, John, hey, I'm sorry to hear that you're not able to make your appointment today. I understand that you got some things going on at work. So just so you know, this was a special time that we had set up for you to go through X, Y, and Z. It's a really important appointment. Are you sure there is another time today that you're able to make it? And if not, I get it. Let's go ahead and get that rescheduled. Let's find a time that is not going to have any conflict with your work, because, totally understand it. But just to let you know, these are special times that we set aside for you that other patients can't come in at that time. So I just want to make sure we find a time that we can be successful at getting you in. So it's kind of like, it's for your benefit, but also respect that we have a schedule. And that has to be said very carefully, not pushing them away, not being a jerk about it, and not being too soft with them. And I tend to feel like the approach is probably too soft. It's probably like, oh, okay, sorry that didn't work out. Let's find a time to reschedule you. And then now that person's being trained. Oh, I can just cancel whenever I need to. I can reschedule whenever I need to. Now, granted, we have a process we do in office, probably new to you. It's called clinic objectives. It's on day 4. So clinic objectives is how to be successful with your care. I'm not sure if we did that when you were in the clinic.
Maybe not.
And so it's a process where there's a paper and there's key things on the paper, and the staff goes through it with a patient. So like, let's say it's your, 4th visit. We go, okay, Trainer Tony, hey, come on over here. Prior to getting rolling with you today, I want to go through a couple of things of just mapping out how to be successful with your care. I'm so excited that you're going to be going through corrective care. This is amazing. This is awesome. Let's make sure we set this up so you just get the best results possible. Sound good? Yeah, for sure. Great. Let's sit down. Right. So maybe you can reiterate that too on the clinic objectives. Of like giving that. It's like, this isn't, oh, I'm going to come and I'm going to like, yell at you and warn you and all this. It's like, man, this is so exciting. You're starting corrective care. This is great. Let's talk about some stuff that has really made a lot of our patients so successful, and some things to avoid that are going to get in the way of that success. That's a good way to term it, right? And then you sit down and you go through this paper, and the paper is like, it's all about making up missed appointments, being on time for appointments, like really staying on track with your care, how important that is. And then even telling the patient, hey, just so you know, if something comes up, we get it, life happens, but if something comes up, please do not call the clinic and expect to be off the phone in 30 seconds. Because when you call to change an appointment, we have to keep you on track. We have to find another time that week to make up the missed appointment. If we can't that week, we got to add another appointment the following week. We got to look at your schedule. It takes a couple minutes. So just please keep in mind, if you call to cancel an appointment, there's things we have to do to make sure that we keep you on track, okay? And expect our staff to say these exact words, all right? Which I want to hear every single time. So we'll have to make sure that they're saying that. Mm-hmm. And then maybe we can go through and we can like monitor phone calls, and if they don't say it, and they don't get their incentive. So it's basically like, if you call to cancel, you say, oh man, I'm sorry to hear about that. Hey, so listen, Trainer Tony, are you sure there isn't any other time today we can get you in? I have a couple of other openings we could squeeze you in, because keep in mind, it's easier to change the time than it is to change the day. When you change the day, it affects your progress. And I'm sure you don't want that, right?
No.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you couldn't get in at 2. How about end of the shift? We have an opening at 5:15. Is that going to work? So like that has to happen. And then if that's a no, then it's okay. Got it. What other day this week are we able to get you in? And so in the clinic objectives, we go through that with the patient, and we even tell them, we say, if you call in, something that we greatly appreciate, if you're on track to be seen 3 times that week and you're canceling one of those appointments, present some other days and times that you already have available, have that already in mind, and that'll help speed up the process so we can keep you on track that week. So what TT should say when he calls to cancel is, hey, I'm really sorry I can't do this. I have a major emergency. I'm not due to come back in 2 days, but tomorrow I'm open from here to here. If you have any appointments, I'll come in so I can stay on track. Like that's stellar, right? Yeah. So that's what's supposed to happen for clinic objectives. Now, in the first scenario I talked about, where you have a brand new patient, that's their second visit, they haven't gone through that experience yet. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, if you handle that too lightly when they do it the first time, they'll do it 3 or 4 more times before they even get to a day 4, or you like kill their ability to be a good patient because you've just allowed them, So it's like, people have to know you're serious and know like, this is something we take seriously, because it's your results, it's our reputation. We want to make sure this is a good relationship.
So it sounds like maybe they need to do like a mini version of that if that conversation happens before day 4.
Correct.
Sort of like a condensed, like, hey, just so you know, and everything you just said, so they get it.
Yeah, and maybe even what they can do is foreshadow or forecast. I don't know if that's the right word, of like what's going to happen in the future, right? Yeah. Forecast is future, foreshadow is back.
I think either.
Both are future?
Synonymous, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, good. We got a thesaurus over here. Okay. Trainer Tony, human thesaurus. TTT, Trainer Tony thesaurus. Okay. I don't even think thesaurus is the word for it, is it? Maybe? Yeah, for a synonym.
It's a book of synonyms.
Yeah. very, very good. All right.
The good ones also have antonyms.
There you go.
And homonyms.
And ad hominems. I don't know.
That's something different.
All right. All right. Woo.
We can leave that in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And on future episodes, TT can actually call in and join us too. So
Yeah.
like you can be her Danny, and we can just have TT be like a regular guest.
Yeah.
Fun.
That would be fun because we have a ability to literally call in, and I can like has a phone right there, and I can plug you in via cell phone, and you're on this, but it's on a phone. Pretty cool. Yeah. So, all right. So everyone in the comment section, let us know if you want TT to come in remotely in the future, if this is entertaining, having him talk about thesauruses and whatnot. So I think what we should do though, on that note, is maybe when a day 2 person cancels like that, we just say, oh, hey, John, totally get you have that thing going on. Hey, so something that we'll be covering with you in a future visit we haven't gone through yet. So I know this is probably the first time us having this conversation, is that depending on what route you decide to, to go through, because at that point, like, they don't really know what's coming as far as the sequence. So it's kind of like, depending on how you want us to take care of you in the clinic, something that we actually go through with our patients is talking about how to stay on track with care, making up missed appointments, all of this. I know right now, this is your second appointment. It's your first time ever coming in to meet with Dr. Todd. So this stuff we haven't talked about yet, but what's so crucial is that in this first process, you've already been adjusted once by Dr. Zach, and getting you back in within 24 to 48 hours is ideal to keep the momentum going. So putting too much time between those appointments really makes it challenging for us to get things figured out with you and get results. So I know you can't come in today, it sounds like, like after you work through those objections. If they can't, let's look at tomorrow's schedule. So not, can you come in tomorrow? It's very different, because people want to be led, and they want someone to be authoritative, kind of taking them by the hand and being like, let me show you the way. But it's too easy if they say, can you come in tomorrow? No, I can't. Instead, let's go ahead and look at tomorrow. And the other person's like, okay, we're looking at tomorrow. I guess that's what we're doing, right? And then you pull it up. Hey, tomorrow, here's our shift. Here's what we got going on. Couple different times. Great news. Tomorrow, we have a couple openings, right? Like, that's how it needs to be. Not like, we're wide open tomorrow. Yeah, we're just sitting around twiddling our thumbs waiting for you to come in. So hopefully you can grace us with your presence, and will you please come in? Please, please, please. Yeah. Like, totally different just ways of setting a precedence.
Yeah. And then they'll do it themselves after that. They'll be like, oh, I'm just going to look at my calendar ahead of time and already have, backup option because of my work conflict or whatever it is.
Something I really want to work on doing, and I think right now, while we're staffed in a good position right now, like, we can task some people with this. I want to have our Hall of Fame put up. Like, I want to do that. I want to have our people that have completed corrective care, a phase of corrective care. I want to have the people that have hit 50 visits, 100 visits, 200 visits. We have patients that have hit 250 visits almost. I want to have that on the wall, like a timeline. So like I want to get that going. And I want to have something where we acknowledge and appreciate patients that don't cancel appointments, that have done a good job, and kind of publicly acknowledge them, take a picture with them, and put that somewhere too in that mix. So we have like our VIP corner or something, and then we have a little list like, what makes you a VIP? Making sure you stay on track with your care, making up missed appointments, very few cancellations, if not none, That is huge. And that goes back to building that culture in the clinic, which we do with the belt system, the 12-week transformation, but that's the piece I've wanted to really dive into more.
You could do like a Gonstead honor roll.
Yeah, there you go. Honor roll. Cum laude. Cum laude. Yeah. Have a little graduation and everything.
That's cool.
Yeah. All right. Martial arts in school, kind of. Anyway. Yeah. And gifting people kettlebells when they don't expect it. That's always cool.
Yeah. You were doing that back in the day.
You should see how many kettlebells we have now. Did you see back in that room when you were in the other day?
I didn't.
We have like a couple 1,000 pounds of kettlebells.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Twisted steel and sex appeal.
I like it.
Yep. There you go. All right. Well, we're at an hour again, which is good. because I can edit that in 50 minutes. I proved it. Right? Just takes 2 days to upload. Got to figure out how to make that a smaller file size. But anyway, those are first world problems. And anything on the outro, being that this would be your last in-person appearance for a while until you come back from Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes.
Yeah, this was really cool to get caught up and just hear about what's been going on and revisit some stuff that I'd forgotten about that were fun and cool things we did.
Yeah, a lot of good memories for sure. And to catch up Danny on the whole history beforehand, because, you know, she knows of Trainer Tony, of course, but now that we've all met and talked, it's kind of fun, you know? I think so. Yeah. You've met Andrew, right?
Yeah, he was at one of our impact events.
Oh, he was. That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right. So I was trying to get Anabolic Andrew on here too, but he's just too busy.
He's a busy guy.
He works 7:30 to 5:30, helping people with their hip replacement, post-rehab surgery stuff, right? That's
Shackled
what he does.
Monkey, all kinds of
Shackled Monkey is one of our exercises, yeah. Yeah, which I asked you about the other day. You forgot even what it was. That was a tibialis posterior activation exercise, Shackled Monkey. That's something Tony was always famous for. He would take some weird exercise that we would never remember what the name of it was, and he would come up with some crazy name that you'd be like, what is Shackled Monkey? So Shackled Monkey is you put this band around your legs, you're shackled, and I don't know what the monkey comes from. But
well, so I was thinking about that. I was like, because when we last talked about it, I was like, where did I get monkey from? And then I realized a lot of in Chinese martial arts, a lot of the moves have an animal in it, like crouching tiger, hidden dragon, or whatever kind of thing. And I was like, oh, well, it has to have a monkey or a dragon or a tiger or something. Yeah. And I like monkeys a lot, so
that makes sense. Yeah.
As we talk about it, I'm tempted to just go through the whole thing, and really everything should have a cool name because it makes it more memorable. That's really
everything should have a cool name and a symbol.
Yeah.
Like a unique symbol.
Nice.
You were talking about how yoga poses all have a funny, up dog, or rising.
Yeah, and there's
sun,
a lot of yoga poses and all the variations and stuff. I think that's why they have to do it, because there's just so many.
All right.
Something to think
well,
about.
Maybe that can be a future thing. We're out of here. That was episode 282. That's why we keep Danny around. She knows what episode we're on. And we'll see you next week on 283. Let us know what else you want to see us cover. We typically have these a little shorter and to the point, but it's fun to go for an hour and just talk about a bunch of random stuff. And hopefully you guys all appreciate this, driving along and just hearing some good stories and getting to know our crew a little bit better. And hopefully there's some good takeaways with this. It wasn't just all a bunch of, nonsense. I don't think it was. I think it was good. All right, cool. Well, over and out. We'll play the outro. Check out our links, demo.movenowu.com, if you want to see behind the scenes demo of what Move Now University is. If you actually want to see all these videos of Trainer Tony, if you want to see these old school videos back in the day when I was 14 years old and Trainer Tony was coming in with a suit jacket, you can check it out. All right. Over and out. Want more Move Now secrets? If so, then go get your copy of my best-selling book and watch my 30-minute behind-the-scenes Move Now demo. My book is called Move Well Secrets, and you can get your free copy at book.movenowu.com and watch the 30-minute demo of our exclusive doctor training portal at demo.movenowu.com. With these two resources, you'll find my top 22 secrets that we've used to build one of the smoothest running, results producing, and super profitable exercise departments within a chiropractic clinic in the entire profession.